Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on transforming food systems from within, which is created by CoFSA, the Conscious Food Systems Alliance. We've got a very dynamic and diverse conversation today about how the role of the inner dimension of consciousness in terms of driving transformation towards regenerative agriculture. And so we're just going to have a debate, a conversation to begin with, and then we'll follow that up a bit later with questions and answers. So Charlotte, who is here, is going to sort of look at the questions and then amalgamate them together. And so when we get to the question and answer session, she's going to sort of look at the questions and make sure we cover as many as possible. And I want to very much welcome our panelists, Otto, Thais, Mindahi, and Godfrey, as well as Thomas Legrand, who's the lead technical advisor of the Conscious Food Systems Alliance. So we're going to get started. And so I'm going to pass you to Thomas, who's going to sort of introduce our time together. Then we're going to have a sort of blessing from Mindahi. And then we're going to get straight into our conversation. So this is a good moment to slow down, to stop, to breathe, to come back to this moment, because this moment is the only one we've got and it's going to be fabulous. So why would we want to be anywhere else? And Thomas, would you like to introduce yourself and start us off?
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. So welcome to this session on the role and potential of consciousness and inner development to transform food systems for more regeneration and equity. Thank you for joining us. I'm Thomas Legrand, the lead technical advisor for the Conscious Food Systems Alliance, which is convened by UNDP. We call it CoFSA, and it's a movement of food, agriculture, and consciousness practitioners united around a common goal to support people from across food and agriculture systems to cultivate the inner capacities that activate systemic change and regeneration. So we really believe in advancing together this agenda, making it more easily actionable, visible, and legitimate, and also in the power of coming together as a community to support each other in advancing awareness-based food systems transformation. So we know that our food systems are in a critical state and sit at the core of the regeneration process that this world greatly needs. And we believe this can only happen with a change of mind and heart sets with different values and worldviews. We have been working now for more than 2 years on this pioneering initiative with key partners. It has been an amazing, sometimes surprising and very emergent co-creation journey so far. And we are very happy to see CoFSA now landing and starting to blossom. So at the end of last year, we have had the pleasure to publicly launch CoFSA with our website, where you can find our foundational documents, such as our manifesto, whose video we'll be sharing at the end of the session today, and our rationale for action report. So we are very honored to be able to launch today our CoFSA community activities with such an inspiring set of speakers. We hope it will spark your curiosity and inspire you to join us in our Conscious Food Systems Alliance emerging journey. So we plan to have every month a session in which we alternatively either inquire together into some key CoFSA areas of interventions, because we look at the whole food system. So it can be, we look deeply into different areas, whether it is farmers' mental health, for example, or conscious consumption. We will unpack these areas throughout the year through this collective inquiry session. And the other months, we will learn from how consciousness practices, such as nature connection or mindfulness or non-violent communication, can support food systems transformation. So I will share at the end of the session today more information on that. But for now, I'd like to ask our dear friend, Mindahi Bastida, indigenous elder from Mexico and the Oltomi Toltec peoples, to offer his blessing for all this work we'll be doing together in the coming months and years. Over to you, Mindahi. Thank you.
Hatiku. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, brothers and sisters from all over the world. Na, yoho, new. Toka mektuno zaki, toka mektuno mui, kamadima kimu, kamadima kitadi mewa. With the permission of the four sacred elements and the tree of life at the center, with the permission of Father Sky and the heart of Mother Earth, and the four directions. Today we are here coming together, acknowledging that we are here just for a while and not forever. And we as human beings, we need to remember that we came here to this beautiful planet, to this beautiful Mother Earth, in a way to reverence life, to respect, and to be responsible. So we need to remember who we are. We are just another species, not the peak of the creation. We are here in this time of crisis, systemic crisis, and we need to remember that we need to recover human dignity and collective dignity. For that, we ask the Great Spirit to give us the wisdom and the knowledge to live in harmony with nature, in harmony with Mother Earth, peace, not just on earth, but peace with earth. So in that, we also need to recover the ancestral ways of being, the original instructions, the original principles, to live with love, in reciprocity, to live with precaution in this world. Because we have misbehaved so much that we are facing these difficult times, but we can do it. We know that we can do it because we as original nations and peoples in the world, we have kept that sacred relationship with Mother Earth and Father Sky. And recovering our human dignity, we can recover families, communities, we can recover ourselves. Also, we can recover the health in ourselves and the health in ecosystems, the health in the atmosphere, in Father Sky. Thanks, Great Spirit, for allowing us to be here, because together we are stronger. Together we can do it. This is the unification process that we are talking about. Thanks, Great Spirit, for allowing us to be here, and blessings for these gatherings of the CoFSA, and searching in ourselves how we can bring the best we can do together. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mindahi, thank you, thank you, thank you. If we started every meeting like that, then I think we would be more conscious and we would take actions and make decisions very differently. And I think, so thank you for that. Just listening to you and hearing what's behind the voice, but the depth of it is a reminder of why we're here and the value of this work, this inner work. So thank you very much. What I'm going to do before we get into a sort of substantive discussion is I just want to ask each of the panelists just to say what you do briefly. So it's like, what's on your business card? And then maybe just to make it a bit personal, just to ask you what was the spark for your own inner development journey. So some of you will have had that maybe from your birth. Some of you may have come to it later in life. So Mindahi, given that you opened and so people know who you are, do you want to just tell us, what is it you do, where you're based, what is it you do, and what was the spark for your recognition that this inner journey is the most important?
Yes, my name is Mindahi Bastida from the Otomi Toltec peoples from Central Mexico. And I have been working around the protection of sacred sites around the world. We have been visiting many sacred sites in Japan, at Mount Fuji, in Mount Etna in Italy, the Four Corners, Mount Blanca, and many other places around the world, like in Egypt and the Azores. And the work we do is to bring and to raise consciousness and to bring ancestral wisdom for the modern life, to raise awareness how to live in peace and harmony among ourselves and with nature. So I have been in this path, and it is important to remember that we are here for a purpose, and that purpose is to really learn from each other and to behave among us, and to behave with other species. And in my lifetime, I have been an academic. I have had the opportunity to teach in many universities in Mexico and the United States. And I've been also supporting UNESCO and UNDP and other areas around the concept of development among original nations and peoples, so-called indigenous peoples. And also I was working with UNEP in the ROLAC office for 2 years. So it's been a journey, but most of all, I've been working with the communities in my hometown and all over the world.
Okay. I mean, Dahi, what was the spark for your sort of spiritual journey?
Well, I come from a lineage of my grandmother and my grandfather, and we have kept these teachings ever since I was a little one. I was taught how to relate to the cosmos and to relate to the sacred relationship with Mother Earth, and especially around the milpa, the so-called chakras and the cornfields, how we could relate to the corn as son of the corns. So that's the sacred relationship that we have with nature.
Thank you, Mindahi. Thais, would you like to introduce yourself and also the spark for your journey?
Yes, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I am the guardian, and I would say the founder and director of a center for regeneration in Brazil, regeneration of people, communities, and ecosystems. And we are 50 kilometers towards the mountains from Rio. And I came here after a long journey of being an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, as a founder of several movements in Brazil, but especially very connected to the women's movement and the environmental movement, in the ecofeminism, and that's it. I was also a co-founder of We Do Women Environment and I developed an organization, but right now I have embraced bioregion, where we are trying to develop a regenerative economy with different partners and create a way of life that is compatible with the humans and also nature, and we can come into a partnership together.
Great. And the spark for your journey, your inner journey for yourself?
I think was the adventure. No, I think that I come from a family of immigrants, and which were always trying to go beyond what was the status quo. And for me also, as I embraced feminism and ecology as part of what I would like to express in my life, I felt that I felt that I needed to have a basis that was energetic, also was not about only doing, but also about being, where these changes that I was willing to bring to the world could come from. And because of that, for many years, right now I'd say for 25 years, I have been practicing like awareness-based methodologies or lineages with lineages. And so, but I think it's part of my life. Since I was a kid, I always thought that the change in the world that I want to bring had to be integral. And so had to have this doing part, but also the more being part.
Great, Thijs, thank you. Godfrey.
Yes.
Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be in this group, and to feel what I'm feeling today is very special. Well, about myself, I really consider myself a person with triple heritage. First of all, I grew up in the African society that was highly spiritual. That is connectivity. I use Ubuntu. I exist because we exist. It was very, very connected, but still, it didn't spark. Then I'm another one. I'm a Dominican priest coming from a tradition of mystics. I liked most of the Dominican priests. What attracted me was the spirituality of the Dominican order, but yet it wasn't there. Then the last one, heritage, the scientific heritage. As a scientist, from electronics to microbiology, that is when everything came together for me. I came from old science, Newtonian, Cartesian science, that the world was piecemeal, disconnected. When I went into modern biology, the biological sciences, I saw a different world altogether. And then my African tradition came up, became real for me, became alive. My spirituality as a Dominican came alive from what I saw in nature. I saw a world radically connected. The more they connect, the more conscious it became. This is what sparked me. From then, my biggest teacher was the Jesuit priest Père de Chardin. The more you connect, the more conscious the world becomes. So I had to live it in myself. That radical thing, nature became for me radical connectivity. This reality became for me. The more we connect, we create synergy, we create negative entropy. Instead of degrading, everything goes up again. So this to me was an awakening from the sciences, from walking, looking at the biological life, from the microbes. I saw the symphony of life, and it became a new world altogether. My question then, how can I align myself with the true north, with what is going on? So my whole world, my whole science became really biomimicry, imitating, learning from nature. And what I learned from nature is that we are radically connected. And the more we are radically connected, the more conscious we become. The more conscious we become, the more we create ourselves. So this is what's backed up. And finally, in the early 80s, during the Ethiopian crisis, remember in Africa then, where that one, we are the world, we are the people. There was a big drought in Africa, in Ethiopia. People were dying, young people were dying. And it struck me, So I looked at it from my lab in California, saw my people dying, my Africanness. I said, what can I do? So all my sciences, my spirituality came before. I said, I must live again. I must use what I have, what I'm feeling myself, bring it back to Africa. So it's not just, but immediately became for me, what Aristotle was saying, this is science, that is episteme learning. From there, practical technique, that is how to use the knowledge to create. But the most important thing is phronesis, the wisdom, which brings everything together. And this is the wisdom, restorative wisdom, bringing everything back together. We call it in current thing, metanoia, a new way of thinking, a new way of living, a new way of being. Being more became very powerful. So this is why I am today. As a scientist that works with nature, understanding the power, particular of microorganisms, the beauty of them together, is what made me to come back to Africa to create a space where things will happen. So Songhai is a project of a new African society where what I call restorative justice, where things come together. And you see today now, and the beginning, the takeoff point of that new thing is agriculture, is the food system. Because I found out that the conventional agriculture is the part of the problem. It's not peaceful, it's not connected, it's disconnected. So it's only restoring peace, restoring the world must be through a new food system where things come together. When you bring 2 + 2 is no longer 4, 2 + 2 could be 20, principle of synergy, negative entropy. So again, the challenge of sustainability comes when we connect. The sky is the limit. So that's why I am today, letting nature make us grow. Producing more and better with less is the key to sustainability. It's only through that consciousness, strong consciousness of connectivity, that we can produce more and better with less. Thank you.
Thank you, Godfrey. And Otto.
A spark for me certainly was early on where I was born. And Godfrey, you were just kind of talking about this paradigm shift. So I grew up on a farm where my parents, some 65 years ago, switched from conventional agriculture that you referenced, in their case, biodynamic. And biodynamic agriculture, as some of you may know, is grounded. It's basically a version of regenerative agriculture that is grounded in Mindai, what you describe as harmony with nature, and the relationship to Mother Earth as something sacred. Where Earth is not just a living system, but really a living being, and that the beingness, is showing up in each place and each landscape in a different way, and that's kind of what we are as humans and as farmers are the stewards of. So that kind of spiritual view of, or deeper view of really what the larger organism of a farm is, and that the ecological, the social, and the inner kind of the spiritual dimension somehow are not 3 separate things. They're 3 different phases of the same deeper phenomenon. That was something I grew up with, and that was certainly kind of the first and the most important spark. A second spark that I probably felt early on was also in my youth years, getting engaged in some social movements around kind of the environmental movement, around the anti-nuke movement and the green movement back then in the 70s, and then the peace movement. And what I experienced there is that I had like 2 sets of friends, kind of one kind of that were more engaged in the outer social change and systems change, and then another set of friends more interested in the inner development. And what puzzled me early on was kind of that these 2 things were not that deeply connected, right? So that I always felt kind of that these are just kind of two different sides of the same thing. But these two networks or sets of friends were not always that closely connected. And so what inspires me most about our current moment and also about this initiative here is that it becomes more and more apparent now to everyone that unless kind of we have kind of this deeper inner shift, kind of the systemic outer shifts that we all know are necessary and called for now, will not happen. And I would say like a third spark for me then really came after I moved from Europe here to the US. I kind of joined you here from the land of the Massachusetts, kind of the what's known as the Boston area, not too far from Walden Pond, kind of a place where the American transcendentalists have been operating from. And so what I learned after joining here the work of the MIT Learning Center some 25 years ago is that, and I started researching really on, what is the story of people who are engaged in some of these, or kind of who brought something new into the world, be that art or science or technology or business or social change. And what I realize is that often there is like a deeper, less visible or almost hidden dimension, and that many of these change makers that I studied and that impressed me most, like had their own spiritual practice, kind of had their own, that was back then. Now I think it comes more into the mainstream, but back then was really not that visible and spoken about and explicit. And one of the individuals that I learned from and that I met along my own journey, John Milton, kind of who runs these a program that he calls Sacred Passage. His method of really developing awareness is by basically putting people into nature, right? So it's kind of a solo experience in nature, in sacred spots or kind of in special places, and helping a little bit with awareness practices before, and then there's a sharing after. And so basically developing a methodology around nature as a teacher. And so I also found that something very deeply resonating with me, with my own experience, but also with my own journey, because it reconnected me back to some of my own origins and helped me to step more into my own path.
Great, thank you, Otto. And Otto, I just want to ask you, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to do a sort of bit of a framing exercise, and then for the other panelists to get more practical. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, you've worked with hundreds of thousands of people on your Theory U and on helping people to recognize the importance of inner development to outer change, and outer change to inner development, to that sort of circular flow. And when we look at the food industry, it's so disconnected and it's so separated, and often it's profit that sort of makes all the decisions. And I'm just wondering, how do you see the ability to integrate the inner dimension into a world that has given no respect to it and often sort of diminishes it and ridicules it? Well, how do we start to shift that balance?
Well, how do we start to shift that balance? I think through listening and through paying attention. Because what I find today is that, very much to my own surprise, that in circles that used to be very much, inside the tunnel kind of an old paradigm, let's put it that way, are open through the challenges that we meet, but also through the collective threshold that we face as a planetary community. I think that for some people consciously, and for other people is just subconsciously working on us, that there is an openness that I haven't experienced before. And so often when we, let's say, I don't know who the we is, but let's kind of say people who believe that there is a very different paradigm, kind of a different consciousness really necessary for the kind of, for addressing the kind of issues that bring us together here. So to bring across that kind of message is only a problem if we start with the message. If we start with embodying the listening that we all aspire, then what happens is that you can form a relationship based on which then you can bring across a different message. So often when interventions fail and when we experience rejection, the problem is not the message. The problem is the missing relationship. And the way you build that relationship is through listening and through connecting with where people are in their place. So that's directly to that question. But what I would say, what we learned is that, so what brought me over here is two or three things. So what brought me over here to MIT was really the realization that at the end of my my doctoral dissertation, my PhD, I realized I was engaging in a kind of knowledge creation that was pretty much useless. So most people, right? I was talking about all the right things, so transformation of capitalism and kind of inner change and so on and so on. But what was I really doing, right? So how was I useful with my own knowledge to the people in the field who are actually pioneering some of these things that I thought were necessary? And the answer to that is sobering, right? Very little. So I wanted to learn how to be more useful. That brought me over here to MIT, into the lineage of what today is known as action learning and action research, which really started with when in 1933, Hitler took power in Germany. Kurt Lewin, who was teaching at the Berlin University, kind of resigned and went to the US right after, and together with other colleagues founded what today is known as action learning and action research, based on the principle that you cannot know a system unless you change it. So that the only way of accessing the type of knowledge that is relevant today and to studying it is by participating in the real world change. And then I think that principle has a very deep message also for our meeting here, because we need unless kind of we somehow participate in this practice of, and that can be in very small context and very local context. So we are just too disconnected to the actual ground, the actual soil where change is happening. So that's kind of the first really learning that, or the first principle that brought me here. You can't understand a system unless you change it. And then the second principle based on that I learned over the past 25 years can be summarized like this. you cannot change a system unless you transform consciousness. And that's very apparent when you look at all the practical experiences, but you cannot change a system unless you change the mindsets or the consciousness of the people who are enacting that system. And that is actually, it's not, it sounds like so it is actually very much grounded in the experience of actual change for most people. The real question, therefore, is number 3, how do you do that? And what I have been learning in that regard can be summarized with the 3rd sentence, which is, you cannot transform consciousness unless you make a system see, sense, and invert itself. See itself is clear, right? It's holding up the mirror. That's what all systems thinking is doing, all the systems tools and so on. So that's, we are familiar with that. But the second word is important. It means sensing. It means, so if I only see what's broken with you, my knowledge is stuck here, right? And we are still reenacting the same old knowing doing gap. If I want to transform the collective knowing doing gap that we all experience today, we know what's wrong and still we know what the problem is, we know what the solution is. Is it embodied in our collective actions? No. So that's our collective knowing doing gap. How do we address a gap, a disconnect, where what the head is saying and knowing is disconnected from the hand, what we are doing? And the answer is here. We need to activate the knowing of the heart. And that's why you need to not only make a system see itself when you do systems intervention, but you need to make a system see and sense itself. Because unless I feel what, unless I can feel the beingness of a landscape, unless I can feel the sacred connection with the land, unless I can feel what's happening on the other side of the social divide, I'm very unlikely to really let go of maybe outdated behaviors. Mm. And the third word is invert itself. So what does inversion mean? And inversion really talks to the inner and the outer, or what kind of in this context we refer to as consciousness. And from a systems view and a systems change view, I think about it almost as and I apologize for that, but almost mechanically, right? And but I really want to bring it down to the simple mechanics that we really need to focus on in systems change. And what it is, the inversion is really the inner, the outer, so that that I internalize the externalities, that kind of bring into my awareness what was outside of it, right? Which is what the opening of the mind and the heart is referring to. So which is that I become aware. So what is consciousness? Consciousness is different levels of awareness, different states of awareness. For example, whether the state of awareness can be awake, it can be asleep, it can be a dream state, right? Something in between. And in most systems today, where we find ourselves is we are asleep, right? We're actually not at all aware of what happens in the other parts of the system. So so to me, if I want to kind of what really do we mean with consciousness, another word for that is awareness or awakeness, right? Waking up to the reality kind of that we collectively embody. And that's kind of the invert itself means that I begin to see more of the whole system. I begin to take it inside myself, and to the degree that I'm listening to it, that I'm taking it inside, right? By opening my mind, opening my heart, my actions are informed from that eco-awareness, not just from my ego awareness, but from my extended awareness. So conscious food systems, for me, have two main dimensions, basically. Like there's a horizontal dimension, right, of conscious food systems, which basically means, you know, I don't like the word, but it's basically the whole supply chain, right? Kind of everything from Mother Earth to the farmer to the fork, right? So the whole system. Am I aware of that? And are we? So there's that's kind of the horizontal dimension of it. A consciousness doesn't just mean I do my own meditation practice. No, it means opening up, waking up to the reality that we collectively enact already, moment to moment. So that's kind of the horizontal dimension. And the vertical dimension is really not only attending to what is, but also attending to the dormant possibilities, right? How we can reshape these systems. So if consciousness is awareness of awareness, kind of it is not only, it is allowing us to realign our attention, attending to that system, and our intention. So what we would actually, the harmony, right, with nature that Mindai, you were talking about, the harmony with each other, what we feel is possible, right? How that can be realigned with each other. So that, to do that in context, right, with subsets of the system, I think that's really what this the third learning, which is how do you transform consciousness by making systems see, sense, and invert itself. The inversion is allowing, taking in the whole system into myself, and therefore allowing my actions be informed by the well-being of all the others, and not just kind of the well-being inside my own bubble. Okay. That's basically what I find myself facilitating processes like this. So it looks, sometimes it looks like you go on learning journeys, kind of you listen to each other, you reshape, but it's basically a lot of holding the spaces where people of systems that are already connected with each other begin to see each other and begin to reshape their relationship in a more intentional way. Sometimes, right. Go ahead, Joe.
No, if you can just, because I want to get to the other panelists to bring this into sort of practicalities, but is anything else you want to say before I bring in everyone else?
Well, I think a good example for that is here in our context here in North America is CSA, kind of the community supported agriculture, right? So where you basically around a farm have a system where kind of you reshape the food system from individual market transactions to kind of we ground our relationships in that whole system on a different idea, kind of on a different way of kind of living in harmony with nature, with each other, and supporting more regenerative practices kind of the whole system. Another example where that's going to scale that I saw recently is in Egypt, in SECAM, kind of the initiative of moving regenerative agriculture practices to scale, kind of with the economy of love concept that is basically currently supporting 4,000 farmers in Egypt to adopt regenerative ag practices. And yet giving up their kind of bringing their product to local prices into the local communities and have their ecosystem services being paid for by carbon credits. Right. And that's, I would say, is when you really think about what does it mean, kind of also the horizontal consciousness to bring in the larger awareness of what food systems do, It basically means becoming more aware of the ecosystem services and to finding economic mechanisms that account for that. And that's where kind of the carbon credits are one funding mechanism. But I think in the future, when we have upgraded our accounting system, our economic accounting system towards including the ecosystem services, where we will be able to make regenerative food systems a lot more mainstream if this awareness of the larger ecosystem is reflected in the economic language that is running the system, which is accounting.
Great. Otto, thank you so much. Thais, I'd like to come to you now because Otto's given a framing and it was talking very much about participation, about not thinking about it, but feeling it. So I want to say to, now get practical because, you and Godfrey Mindahi are sort of working on the ground. What are you finding you're doing that is working, that where the inner dimension is driving change? How are you bringing it into your work? How do you get people to respond to it and to sense it, as Otto says? So give us a framing from your perspective on how this can generate transformation and how you're working with it.
Yes, thank you very much. And I couldn't agree more with one of the many things that Otto said, but particularly one, that if you want to change a system, you have to be part of it, and somehow it's at the third part of my life, because for many years I was in movements. I was also pretty much on the global sphere, looking for proposals and big frames. But when it comes to that change, you have to participate in it, and I think it's also that somehow it's apparently when you come to places where somehow are an expression of many of the contradictions that we have in our system today, people also reflect these contradictions, not by their mindsets, by their, let's say, their awareness, how they think. But I think that by lack of creating these relationships, and the more specific they are connected to a particular action or particular thing that is out of us, more I think you can come to something in common, no? So for me, it's a lot, this awareness is a lot to see beyond the different social, racial, religious that are so manifesting today, in the world that we were all looking for many of these differences. But when you come to work together around certain things that are important for us, in our case, is the food system, but it's also the water, the forest, and so the competing perspectives around the use of land, the use of soil, the use of land. I think you can reach even with very simple language. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be too conceptual. It doesn't have, but we come to a common understanding. And for me, in these 15 years that I have done this step, because I came from like a global scene and movements that were even like CoFSA that have an overall frame. But this is one of the things that I saw, that with time there are many things that we can agree that go beyond a language or a concept. And one example that I would like to give, because it's interesting to see, when you think about the food system in general, is interesting to see how these marginal communities that are somehow in the margin, how also all these contradictions are so embedded in here. How people that live in a forest that is so abundant of food and food possibilities, growing food and all that is so colonized by industrial food, manufactured food, processed food that is causing also so many diseases. No, so one of our first things at Sinal in this land that we have of about 200 hectares was to reconnect it with what was local, no, which were the local plants, not necessarily only the cultivations, the local agriculture, but also what the forest by itself provides, no, what we call non-conventional plants, but also what was already there. And the example that I want to bring here was the jackfruit. You know, jackfruit was brought here during, it's not native, but it was brought here during the slavery because it was a very resilient tree that grows in tropical forests, and it has fruits of about 20 kilos that can really feed very easily a family and it was brought also to be something for the slaves, but it's still here, and it has been very stigmatized even by academy, because it says that it creates, because it grows and its fruit spreads and it creates, it's invasive and all these things. And by reconnecting consciously to the jackfruit, there are so many dimensions, historical, the use of land, of how we name and we connect to things that was very important for us to kind of, and as an example, to which we can connect, you know, and we made it our main fruit to develop and grow as something that we also create a market, create an education system, create a system of income generation, of regeneration of soil. So around the jackfruit, we really did a lot of connections, you know, which is part of this growing consciousness that is needed, because as Otto said, is the inner and the outer, but somehow we have to find something that can connect us across all these different divides and also interests in which we have. And this is what we have been trying to do with the jackfruit. I have some slides that can show you some picture that I am going to do very quick. And yes, and to say, yeah, no name is passing here, and we go very quickly how jackfruit can be a regenerative vehicle for food systems. Next, we can see the size of a jackfruit. The next, you can go next.
Move it to the next slide.
Yeah. And showing, I mean, all the different benefits it has, no, and it's so by showing, like, making a different perspective how easy it is to connect to different people, local people, like farmers that have never seen the jackfruit. They always saw it as a problem, no, because when it is ripe, it just goes down and creates all these seeds around. And next. And then it shows how we can use all the parts. And it's interesting, what is interesting from this fruit is that its texture is so similar to meat. And as we are trying to create meat replacement, jackfruit can do it. And of course, in niche markets, it's already spread, but here is really a novelty that people really are so surprised how similar it is to some of the textures that they are used to eat. Next. Abundant possibilities, all the dishes you can do. And the next. And then in our processing, I mean, what we do, and a lot of women participate, this is relevant also because it can create employment as it can be used for different purposes and in different markets. Next. Yeah, and this is our bioregion, the scale and possibilities that we see, and this is our bioregion in which we are working. It's about 10,000 hectares, and we are working with protected areas as well, showing that the jade fruit can be used in a different way. What I would like, the way I would like to conclude is to say that that it's very important that you find very practical possibilities, because that is where, I mean, many dimensions of consciousness can be articulated, because I think it's as Otto said, we have to go, you have to go beyond our beliefs to what relationship can create as an outcome of these projects, these initiatives we are doing. And this is what we have been doing with Senal, with very different people, because we have local people, we have people from the region, we have like people that come from different countries, more like formally educated people, other people educated by life. And we are certain of these projects like this, we can address many dimensions that come from their knowledge system. No, it's not only the belief system, it's also a knowledge system that is integrated in there. So one of the testimonies of my journey that I could do is that these place-based initiatives in which we really living here, because this is what we do, are the ones that create like a vessel, or where many of these things we have been talking about inner, the conscious food and all that can kind of manifest and be like an experiment that creates, I would say, certain perspectives and possibilities for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Godfrey, I just want to pick up, you may want to say something else as well, but one of the things that often holds up change is fear, that established systems, people know it, they've been doing it, it's often, they feel it's worked up till now. And so changing feels like it's the fear of loss, or of that loss of status, loss of income. I'm just wondering how you work with people in a way that helps them over their fears and to recognize that change is possible and welcome, and how a sort of inner wisdom approach can help with that. And you need to come off mute, Godfrey. Godfrey, you're still on mute. Naomi, can you take Godfrey off mute? Godfrey, you're on mute still.
Yes, I'm trying, but I'm not sure I can.
Hello, Godfrey, can you hear me? You're on mute at the moment.
Yes, now.
Okay.
Okay, you're on now.
Thank you very much. That the question you pose is very, very important. This question of changing. That's why a part of the Songhai experience is what we call the Songhai space, where with communities, small communities, where people with less fear come together and create a smaller, we call it the mother farm, got a space where people committed come together, and then little by little, other people will see what is going on. So the Songhai model is really, we call them spaces we create, enabling spaces where things come together, the agricultural people. So people now migrate there and see it's working, and it's very, very easy for them to change. Then we came to Benin when it was very, very tough. So it like preaching in the desert. So all we did is start with 1 hectare community. And now Songhai model is really communities from 25 hectares to 1,000 hectares, where things happen most people sharing the same mind, the same thing come together. And then other people see it's working and then they come. We call it the third way. The first way is criticizing people, your own thing, talking, it doesn't work. The second way is just joining the old club, making peace with mediocrity. But we call it the third way. We create a space where we master, where a group of people who share the same vision, I'm going to talk about the vision, the same principle, come together and see it working. That attracts a lot of people. And when they come into our space, they find the reason. That's what Otto was coming, that conversion, that inversion. We do it in that way. We call it the third way. Create a space where we master the pillars and turn it. And then people migrate. When they see the benefit of it, they really come easily and their fear will be dropped. Okay. So what is the pillars of that space? We call it innovative institution. First of all, the people who enter have a different mindset. We call it eco-literacy kind of thing. Then we develop different tools from that new vision, different tools. And then we use those tools to start creating socio-economic, in this case, food systems. With a new mindset, with the new technologies, we create functional food systems. When it's working, people come to it. It's like putting sugar on the tongue of a small boy, he wants more. So this is the system we're using today. When we create that space, it's working. It's very, very easy to attract other people in our space. So that's exactly how we are doing it to let away the fear, and then people join into that space. We call it this enabling space, a reform space, where there is what we call the going from the awareness to the ego awareness to the AK awareness. Then creating, this is what is really happening in our thing. This transformation and what do you call it again? It is the type of thing that we are trying to do today in that one. I don't know whether that answers your
yeah, it does, Godfrey. And one other question is, what's the importance of language? So, I mean, when you're talk, you know, that you might have a deep spirituality and inner knowing, but when you share with people, are there are there restrictions on the language? Because some people can be put off by the language of spirituality or inner dimension. Yes. I'm just wondering how to connect with people.
That is very good. We are right. We don't even show that spirit. It's how living it. You say spirituality is a deep thing. We all carry it. But when you talk about it, it's place where people are. We don't even talk about spirituality. We call it deep living. We use a different language altogether, to talk about it. Then when they see live it, the language is ourselves. With simplicity connected, we are with the people over there. We don't even have to talk about it. What is making you think? And then talking about your own spiritual experience. I don't start about talking about spirituality. I hide it. I don't even wear anything. People don't even. But the way we look at it, they say, what is behind it? People start, why are you acting this way? So when they see us, we call it the core group. I spend a lot of energy grooming the core group grooming. So their language, the language is not just the mouth, but the way they act, the way they behave, the way they love, the way they're dedicated is the language to us. And it's no longer offensive language. When you come to Songhai space today, people from different walks of life, atheists, kind of things, they start to see them changing. Because we're not imposing it on them. We're just living. We are very, very, it's radical respect to them. We don't even force anybody, but we show it by the way we act, the way we walk, the way we look at them, we love them. We love them into existence. So this is the language we use over there. We don't even have to ask it. Nobody, I don't force anybody anything, but in the field I'm with them, trying to auto say something to them, listening to people, aside from where they are. When I find them, I'm not excluding them. We call it broad-based and inclusive. This is our tool, inclusive and broad-based. Try to understand where they are coming from, not judgmental. When the people know you're understanding them, they come to you. So this is why Songhai is able to grow this world, our food system. When people come there, we don't preach, we don't do that kind of thing. We are workers. We call ourselves mentors. We call ourselves mentors. So our point is a group of people who share the same value system, create the culture. When you create it over there, when a value system, we don't preach it, but we use it to create spiritual, social, economic wealth. It becomes attractive. This is exactly the core of Songhai. If you come to Songhai, we ask you what auto state is about, we say it is head, hand, and heart. The heart there, we don't talk about, it's this humanity. We don't even use the word spirituality, humanity. That language, head, hand, and heart. We say the head is important, the knowledge, the skill, but the core of it is the heart. What is the heart? Is humanity, connectivity, discipline. And that language, when they see it is in action, is very active, is very working. People flock to it and they join us with it. And that's why they see the movement going today.
And thank you, Godfrey. And as I say, it's head, heart, and then hands. It's then the doing.
Yes.
So, and then
Excellent.
the doing informs the head and the heart, and then it informs the doing. So that's the beautiful sort of circle of understanding and into action. Thank you, Godfrey. I think Mindahi might have dropped off the call. Is that right, Nomi? Because I can't see him at the moment.
I'm
He
here.
just reconnected. Yeah.
There you are. Mindahi, welcome back. I just want to know if there's anything you wanted to add in terms of what Otto was saying, what the others are saying about the practical nature of how you move from a deep understanding into practical action, and what you found works, and also what are the barriers to that? What makes it, what's the most difficult thing you find when you go and meet with communities that they sort of might listen to you, but actually they don't want to change it? Just wondering what your experience is. And then
Yes,
after that, we'll go to questions, and I'll come back to you, Charlotte.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it has been so wonderful to hear from Otto and also Geoffrey and the experiences that we have had in the communities. You know, I like to bring the attention to how we relate to nature and how we are bringing forward the ancestral wisdom. When we talk about original instructions, original principles, is how we relate among ourselves with nature and the cosmos. And one thing that we have to bear in mind is to go from the me to the we, because that's in modern life, you know, this individualistic way of thinking, this positivist way of thinking has eroded the connection with the food we produce or what we eat, and how we can transform this consciousness. And first of all, I like to say that we need to touch from the basis that the elements of life are elements. But when you talk about resources and you commodify nature, it comes to the fact that we don't really respect the sacred. In other words, when we talk about water as a resource, or the air as a resource, or the lands as a resource, we implement this kind of dominion or domination from the human agency to life, and it is important to think about that, because we need to think also not just to have environmental in the curricula, but also how we produce food in the curricula, because many, you know, societies, they don't even know where the food is coming from. So we need to give the chance to everybody to be in touch with this with nature and the production of what we eat. So one of the original principles that we have is reciprocity. And this principle, reciprocity, is about not just taking and extracting, but how can we pay back what is sacred to nature? Because to this time, just I think original nations and peoples, we have this connection still, but we are losing it. We need to understand that we need to keep that original instructions, those original instructions to do what we have to be in sacred connection with nature and also with what we produce, because the indigenous foods are being eroded. We don't have access anymore to indigenous food because the pollution of the rivers, the pollution of the air, and so on and so forth. And even to these days, we have, we have facing so much problem because the market in the so-called the goods, especially around this like the coffee or the corn or other goods, are the price is not local price, is driven by the multinational companies or in the international markets. So that affects us because instead of producing the indigenous food, in many communities are producing these products to supply international markets. So we need to begin with our families, with our communities, and then at regional and international level, how we can bring back these reciprocities, and do reciprocities to also acknowledge the spiritual world through ritual, through ceremonies. And that's how we can bring consciousness as well, from the local to the global, and then to the global to the local in that reciprocity, because we also live in a global world. So we need to work together in recovering this collective dignity as human beings. So I think the heart is very important, how we relate for what we do and how we relate for what we eat. So that's what I can share with you. And yes, we need to be practical. We need to really learn and to teach our little ones, the children. We need to teach them, because we had, in my case, I had the opportunity to grow in this way. By my children, because they went to school, they don't have the same opportunities, but we need to produce those opportunities ourselves. We have the responsibility to produce those opportunities. So to recover the ancestral knowledge, the ancestral indigenous foods, the ancestral ways of doing and feeling and acting. So in this sense, what we are inviting you is to come together. We can learn from each other. I think even at the curricular level, we can bring the ancestral original principles, how to live in peace and harmony with nature, with Mother Earth and the celestial bodies. So that's what I can share with you, that we are in a very, very interesting time. So we can really do, feel, and work together. Thank you.
Mindahi, thank you so much. There's so many wonderful, rich perspectives in this conversation, and unfortunately, as a result, the time for Q&A has been squeezed, but there's still a little bit of time. So, Charlotte, is there one or two questions that have come up that sort of seem to speak to what people are asking?
Yes, very much so, Joe. And I do want to honor the attunement there has been between the people who are attending and what our panelists has been sharing in terms of emphasizing really the symphony and the weaving and the tapestry making that needs to take place in this work. In terms of questions, well, we have been I think we have people here who are very much doing the work on the ground as well, but meeting some of the challenges as well. For example, in Oroville, they worked very hard to restore an eroded plateau, but then now they're finding that developers are coming in, cashing in and paying 500% for the land for their commercial models, disrespecting the ecology and social context. And that speaks very much to one of the core questions I've noticed is Sarah Dubreuil asking, how do you deal with the intersection between working at local level and national, international dynamics, for example, in terms of property rights, financing power, and so on? There was another question from Sigrid that relates to what Mindahi's been talking about with reciprocity. The big question being for her, how do we live with the land? What do we give to the land, or what do we want to get out of it? And how we share. Sharing was also a theme several participants came up. Two more questions. One was, how do we bring back all our indigenous foods that have disappeared in the face of modernism? And the last one I found quite interesting is Maria asking, how do we, or do you have any examples of how to deal with rigid communities who are not open to change, or thinking that changes are basically wrong, despite the evident need for change? She says traditional community awareness approaches can take ages or are not being successful. Right. And just two very practical ones. Yeah. Ariel wants to know, Otto, what is the name of the first example you gave of the regenerative farm? And Mary Purdy wants to know how she can come and visit you in Sino do Vale, Thais, and if there are programs there that people can come. So
maybe thank you, Charlotte. Maybe on the practical ones, you can pop those into chat, so we don't take much time, because we've only got about 5 minutes. So I'm going to pick on one question first, which is this one about how local integrates with national and international, and the sense of you can create something positive and then people can come in from the outside and then just take your success away and sort of then commercialize it in the old style. I'm just wondering which of the panelists would like to take on that question. And just come off mute. And Thais, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would say that I think there is not such a divide, local and international, and all these trends also are playing. These forces are playing also locally. I mean, in the place where we are, the competition for the use of land is very present. You know, is very real. And I think, in my view, we have to keep going, stay fluid and keep moving, because as Otto said, I think there are many more people. I mean, you are not alone. I think there are many, it's not, I think there are some people just resisting, living the old paradigm, but there are many more willing to embrace the new one. So I think as we kind of embrace courageously change, what I've seen in my experience, and I am not in a place where things are easy. There are very contradictory forces like playing on the ground, but there is a support to keep moving, because we are not starting from zero. There is legislation. There are people at all levels of institutions that are willing to also move into this more evolutionary change that the planet needs, that the social needs. So I think it's keep doing what we are doing. That's what I see, and I'm kind of creating like these relationships that there are in the institutions with people that understand that need to change, you know. And I think that Brazil is the big example of that. Apparently, the country is divided, but these forces like are in conflict, but they keep going. No, I mean they keep evolving. No, it's not either or nor. It's they are going to. I think we are going to coexist together for a while still. But the planet also is helping us, no, because with all the overload of the capacity of the planet is also showing people with climate change, but also the use of resources is also showing that we have to go another way.
Thank you, Thijs. Otto, we've just got literally 1 or 2 minutes before I pass back to Thomas, but would you like to add anything to that, given that you look globally and you visit many different communities? How much of a struggle is it?
Yeah, I think it's I think it also goes back to what Mindai just said. So we live in a world that's not only local, but also globally interconnected. And I think it's a very good example of our current poly crisis, right? So what's broken is not only the food system, it's basically the entire paradigm, how we think about the economy. Mindai and others were referring to that. And we will not be able to solve our current issues with the same economic mindset that created them. So really kind of rethinking the entire economy is the larger topic. And I think how it relates to food system is that whenever we move towards a breakdown of systems, which we see already happening, where is the new system, the new economic system being regenerated from? And the answer is from nature, from agriculture, from regeneratives. That's kind of, so their conscious food system for me is not just about sustainable, scaling sustainable food worldwide. No, it has the seeds of regenerating our economy. So the way kind of the regeneration of our economy works is that it is most visible and kind of in a dormant form already present in all our regenerative agricultural initiatives, often locally, and yet maybe more and more also interconnected. So I think the awareness that we need to rethink the entire economy, not around just one, but multiple acupuncture points of change, is growing all over. A few months back, I was in New York with a group of 50 very powerful ministers and key leaders and decision makers in global institutions. One minister stood up and said, described the situation in his country, looked into the room and said, is here anyone in the room who does not think that our current economic system is broken? Everyone was looking around, stillness, not a single hand went up. That's our current situation. Everyone is aware of that the current system is broken, and yet no one really knows what the new will look like and how we move from here to there. And that's why the initiatives that Thais is prototyping, that have been describing, that many of us in this circle are involved in, are so critical, because the new system shows up first where? Locally. And that's kind of where we can learn and where we can grow these new kind of ways of operating, and these new kind of activate new types of generative social fields that, if they become interconnected with each other and supported in the right way, can go to scale at a level that is called for now. Right. So I think a lot is already there, a lot more than we often are aware of. And the question is pointing at exactly the right issue there.
Right. Thank you, Otto. So I'm going to pass to Thomas to sort of close, because I want to respect people's time. But before I do, Otto, Mindahi, Thais, and Godfrey, thank you for bringing your wisdom. And also, I've been watching the chat, and there's, as you pointed out, there's a lot of wisdom in this bigger circle, and there's been a really dynamic chat going on as well, which has been lovely to see going on alongside. But given people's time, and given I want to respect the time for Thomas. Thomas, can I just pass to you to close these proceedings?
Thank you, Joe. Thank you all for this wonderful conversation. I think it's really setting the stage for launching our community activities, all this discussion we want to have with you in the coming months and years. So I'm struck, we have realized that since we started this work, how much, diversity, we are trying to bring a lot of diversity into it, but at the same time, I'm struck by how somehow we spoke the same language. Maybe sometimes the words are different, but I think we're all walking in the same direction. We all recognize, that our systems are broken, and that change can start, with the food systems and with a different mindset, and and that we are the importance of relationship, nature as teacher, and the importance of traditional wisdom, and importance of connecting the inner and the outer. So as Godfrey said, I think we are all workers, so we are just we'll keep working this path now with you in CoFSA. It has already been 2 years we have worked on this, and we'll keep working in a way that is emergent as a journey, a path. And I'd like just to share a little bit with you what we have coming in the coming months. Maybe Noemi, if you can put a slide, because we'll be having, these community activities every month. One set of it every other month. We'll have collective inquiries to look deeply into some core areas of intervention of CoFSA, so that we can, and each of these events will be the starting point for a broader discussion in which we can look into specific experiences, expertise, methodologies, to be able to bring this agenda of work into our projects and organizations. So the first one will be on cultivating conscious local communities and cultures for regeneration in April. And then we'll talk about farmers and communities' well-being and resilience. We'll move on to revitalizing and strengthening traditional wisdom, conscious consumption, cultural transformation of organization, conscious food policy reform, conscious multi-stakeholders dialogue. And we hope like all these collective inquiries will be led by your members. So we feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be engaging with you to design these events, but then also how do we, what's the agenda for all these discussions that we can follow up into some specific action groups. The other kind of events that we will have every other month will be on consciousness practices for food systems transformation. So how such things like nature connection, mindfulness, non-violent communication, emotional awareness, how can we leverage these practices for food systems transformation? We'll in these sessions, we'll have a bit of practice, and we'll hear the experience of some of our members in leveraging these practices to support change in the food systems. So we'll also look at conflict management, compassion training, how to deal with stress and the risk of burnout, etc. So we are very excited to, or maybe we can have a last slide on how to join, because I see something on the chat. So you can visit our website, become a member. It's very easy, and you can become an individual member, not necessarily organizational. It takes 3 minutes to register, and you can also sign up to our newsletter, follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. We can put and we have also an exciting strategic retreat in the UK in Schumacher College in mid-April. You have the information also on our website and newsletter that you have just received. So thank you all. I think we can leave you with the video of a manifesto for those that still have 4 minutes or in this transition. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much, Otto, Godfrey, Thais, Mindahi, and all of you for being with us in this walk. Thank you.
Welcome to CoFSA, the Conscious Food Systems Alliance. It is now time to unlock food systems transformation for the nourishment of all people and the regeneration of the planet.
Global food systems are at breaking point, and our current policy solutions and technical innovations are not delivering the change we need. To create more regenerative systems, we need to access deeper levers of change.
Crisis begins within us and how we see and relate to the world. While food connects us fundamentally with the earth and with one another, the current global food system is shaped by a deep cultural story of separation that sets individuals apart from other beings and with nature.
This inner disconnection manifests in dysfunctional food systems, hungry children, obesity epidemics, and farmers' despair, extractive production practices, devastated landscapes, and biodiversity loss.
While these issues are embedded in structural inequalities and the disempowerment of the most marginalised stakeholders, they are also rooted in our collective consciousness.
To activate solutions, we must therefore also look within, shifting the collective ways of being, thinking, and doing that have produced the current crisis.
The time has come to build the inner foundations of sustainable food systems.
The Conscious Food Systems Alliance, CoFSA, is a movement of food, agriculture, and consciousness practitioners convened by UNDP and united around a common goal.
To support people from food and agriculture systems to cultivate the inner capacities that activate systemic change and regeneration.
We aim to complement existing approaches, exploring ways to integrate evidence-based consciousness practices such as mindfulness, compassion, nature connection, nonviolent communication, and self-reflection into food systems initiatives.
These practices foster the awareness, connection, and creativity that can unlock structural solutions.
We know that these practices are effective, and their value in supporting sustainability at multiple levels is increasingly recognized. We also know that they are not new. Indigenous and traditional wisdom have embraced these practices for millennia within a holistic understanding of food and the natural world.
CoFSA offers a bold vision on the role of consciousness in food systems transformation. Around this shared purpose, diverse stakeholders are uniting, co-creating and adapting approaches to their own contexts and learning from each other.
Reconnection begins here. Join a growing community of practitioners exploring pathways toward conscious food systems.
Great. Thank you all for joining us, and good luck with all your work, and stay connected. So bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.